enforcement are the heroes of our community, and it's important to show them appreciation and let them know that their community has their back. My name is Blake Kappas, and this is my senior project presentation, a bridge between citizens and officers in the local Idaho Falls community. So for my project, my goal was to bake 2 homemade baskets of treats, deliver one to a local Idaho Falls Police Department and one to a local Idaho Falls Fire Department. Now in doing this, I came up with 3 steps over 3 weeks to give myself a timeline for this project. Week 1 was the planning stage, week 2 preparation, and week 3 was the execution phase. Now for the planning and preparation phases of my project. Week 1 began with the planning phase. I first went over to my grandmother's house and we took out all of our family cookbooks and chose 12 recipes from all of the cookbooks that we might want to include in the baskets. We chose a mix of savory and sweet, and we used the family cookbooks because I wanted to put a little bit of myself into the project because I learned how to bake using those recipes. So from those 12, we narrowed it down to 6 recipes that would definitely be inside of the basket. From there, we called the local Idaho Falls Fire Department and Police Department, and we asked them how many people would be on duty that day so we knew the quantity of treats. From there, we looked at all the ingredients and then we came up with a shopping list. And then starting next week with our preparation phase, I went back to my grandmother's house and we looked throughout her house and my house to try to find all the ingredients we already had. From there, we went to the grocery store and bought the remaining items on our grocery list. We went back to my grandmother's house, got out all her pots, pans, cooling racks, and all of her baking utensils, and brought them to my house so they were ready for next week when we started baking. And then from there, me and my mother went and we got baskets, ribbon, and plastic wrap to go around the baskets to make them look cute. Then the 3rd week was the execution phase of my project. We began at 9 a.m. and from 9 to 9:30, I set up the kitchen, I cleaned it, set up specific stations, a bread station, a cookie station, a roll station, etc. to make sure everything was organized, and then I set out all the ingredients. From there, the first thing we decided to make was Rice Krispie treats because it was on the stove and it was the easiest thing to make, and those took about half an hour, and this is the finished product. And then next, we made pumpkin bread and the banana bread, each taking about an hour and a half. And then we made rolls, and it took 2.5 hours, including all the rising and baking times for those. And then from there, we moved on to cookies. First, we started with our chocolate cookies because those took the longest to chill in the fridge. We did 2 batches, and they took multiple hours to chill. So during the time that those were chilling, we made the snickerdoodles, and then from there, we also made the chocolate zucchini bread as well. And then finally, we made the brownies. Now, a little family secret is putting marshmallows and chocolate chips on top and melting them. And so it just made it just a little bit sweeter. And after the brownies were done, we cleaned up the entire kitchen, which took about half an hour to do all the dishes. But then from there, it was already 6 p.m. at night, so we decided to wait until the next day to actually prepare and deliver all of the baskets. So the next day, it took an hour to wrap all of the treats in little baskets and tie ribbons on them, another hour to place them inside of the baskets, and then half an hour to make the cards to go inside of the baskets. Then we decided to deliver the baskets. First, we went to the Idaho Falls Police Department, and that took about half an hour, and then the fire department also took about half an hour to deliver. So in total, my project took 15.5 hours to complete. Moving on, for my project, I learned the physical way to be able to help our community and our police by giving them service, but I was wondering what else can a community do just besides serving police and showing appreciation to help back them up. Well, that's what led to my paper about community-oriented policing. A Gallup poll recently stated that 57% of Americans lack trust in the police. So this is because traditional law enforcement, oftentimes citizens view officers as they have a stigmatism towards them because they only see them in dangerous situations or when they're in trouble. So seeing an officer is a bad sign to them psychologically, and it leads to more stigmatism, which leads to them lacking trust. But compared to the traditional law enforcement, there's something called community-oriented policing, which is a partnership between citizens and officers where they use their problem-solving skills together to solve public safety issues within their community. So my paper talked about the 3 ways that community-oriented policing reshapes a society. The first way is restoring trust in local police departments. As I stated before, oftentimes there are stigmatism towards officers because they're viewed as enforcers, but with community-oriented policing, they're viewed as partnerships in the community and they're working together. So the goal of community-oriented policing in this setting is to make sure that officers have daily interactions, normal interactions with everyday citizens, building trust and humanizing the officers so that people see them for why they're there in the community versus just a ruling head over them. And so once they're able to do that, they can come together and work on programs together to help build up their community. Now, the second way that community-oriented policing reshapes a society is through stabilizing the local economies. As Kellings and Wilson stated, the broken window theory, which is basically when you're in a community and it looks run down or it has urban decay, it signals psychologically to the citizens in that community that that area is unsafe to walk down or it has a lot of crime, so they choose to stay away from that. And if it's in a local downtown area, which most of the time it is, it decreases the economic value of that specific business in those areas. So instead, community-oriented policing introduces programs like a graffiti or a trash cleanup to make that street look nicer. It shows that the police officers care about their community, but it also shows that those streets are safe to walk down and they're being constantly patrolled, which increases business and which increases revenue and which leads to a more stable economy. Now, the third and final place that community-oriented policing reshapes a society is in the schools. Having school resource officers are part of a community-oriented policing program. Those school resource officers are there not to be enforcers and punishers towards the kids that have issues and problems with the law, but rather they're there to be advocates for them and help build them up so they can stay out of the criminal justice system. And when they're staying out of the criminal justice system, the police are working with the school to help them build up a successful life, but they're also preventing future crime from occurring. So what I learned from this whole experience, from writing my paper and doing my project, was these three things. First thing I learned is how powerful trust can be. When police and citizens have trust in each other and their ideas, they can build up programs that benefit the entire community. And it's important, everyday interactions with officers leads to more trust in humanizing them, and just simple interactions like saying hi or being at a local community event can lead to a decrease in crime. The second thing I learned from this project is the actual data versus the reality. From the data I was researching for my paper, there was a lot of statistics about decreasing crime and having more benefits, and how much the officers care. But when I went to deliver my baskets, I got to talk to the actual police officers and firefighters in our community and ask them why they cared about our community so much and why that was their job. And their answers made me trust them more because of how much I care about the community, and that's something we have in common. And together, it's possible to build up programs together when you have trust in each other and you're humanized in that way. Now, the third and final thing I learned is that public safety is a collective effort. A lot of the programs that I researched in my paper were programs introduced by citizens that were brought to law enforcement, asking them for help. And law enforcement and citizens work together to build up those programs to help benefit the community. And those programs were most important versus just normal law enforcement. Having programs that help with all sorts of needs leads to much better community, and it leads to a safer community. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. Thanks for listening to my presentation.
Pause it.
Yeah. I'm just gonna edit it out. That was pretty good.
Yes.